Hello guys, first of all I would like to apologize for the time that I spent explaining the following tutorial about the ability system, and for the quality of the end of this tutorial, because I was a little bit tired. If you want to have the project, I've added the link right under this video. You can download it and just follow up the tutorial with the further explanation in case you don't want to recreate it from the start point. So, thank you. Hello guys, it's a new episode of your sandbox project, and I'm gonna show you how to create, in my opinion, quite flexible and universal ability system. I was inspired by Diablo 3 and Dead Cells, so my ability system combined both methods, where I have the predefined bindings for each particular slot. I have swap abilities inside the action bar, so I can swap my abilities, and when I swap, the action keys for activating these abilities doesn't change. Also, I can withdraw the skill that the ability skills doesn't matter, that I don't want to have on my action bar to the world, and they are represented by the specific actor. You can think of like Dead Cells or like the Path of Exile, where you can pick up an element and the skill is inside this element. So if you don't have this element, you don't have a skill. That's why I don't have the spell or action book, ability book. So now let me demonstrate how my system works. So right now, as you can see, I have empty slots. Once I've overlapped with particular ability, you can see the 3D widget with the brief description of this skill, of this ability. Once I pick it up, they are added to my some sort of inventory. I can swap them. I can withdraw them to the world, and now they're placed and the pipeline works perfectly in this case. Also, as you can see, if I swap element or switch it to another position, once I pick other elements, they are added to the first empty slot. I do have duration and cooldown timers, also animation for these states. Once I've used the ability, let's go invisible. You can see this blue animation is for the duration of ability, and the red one is for the cooldown. If the ability is on the cooldown or is used, I can't withdraw it. But once it is able to be used, I can withdraw it. And other ability that I can swap elements inside my action bar, even if they are on their timers. So that's how it works, and now let's start the tutorial. So before we start, I'd like to tell the purpose of this tutorial is to build up the proper pipeline for the ability system. In my opinion, it's, as I said earlier, turned out to be quite flexible and universal. Let me tell you how the system works. So, you have the component that you should add to your character, like this. Once you've added this component, that's all that you need inside your character to start working with the ability system. All other actions and logic is made inside this particular component, and each ability is divided by separate element. It's a separate element with its own logic. All abilities are derived from the base class, as you can see, ability base, which contains logic for duration, cooldown timers, for the ability to pick up or show the brief information about the ability, and also the particular use of this ability. And I also do have some UI elements that are for swapping abilities inside the action bar, for visual representation of the duration and cooldown abilities, cooldown timers. They are also for showing up the animation of particular states, and that's actually it. Also, the main trick of this approach that I use is that once I overlap with the particular actor, particular ability, it doesn't destroy it. I attach it to my character, so even if I go to another level, but in this case you need to have the save system, I store the element and I store the class of this element, and in case you have save system, you just need to reconstruct or spawn the element from the class that you have inside your sort of inventory and attach it to the world. And the use of ability is also very interesting, because once I have the ability inside my sort of inventory, the reference to the particular class of ability, not the object but the class, I don't need to check whether I have it somewhere in the somewhere. I don't need to store all the information about this object. I can use ability through the interface, and all the elements that are placed in the world will actually be capable to help me use the ability. So I don't need to check whether my element is valid or not, if it's on the scene or if I have it attached to my character. It will be used and the pipeline will work perfectly. So I don't bother about any information, I just need to have the reference to the class, so I click use and the magic happens. All the actors that are placed here, they are constructed using the structure and the database. Database contains all necessary information for the class to work with it. So let's start with the structure. By default, all abilities should have only these core elements. Other elements, like if you have the damage for your skills or another sorts of particular influence on the world or other chapters, they can also they should also have their own databases of which contains like the ID for the particular skill. It can be the type of the skill, and whether you have this reference to the class, you can use it as you can use another database to define. If we talk about like the weapon ability, like the damage ability, you can have tiers like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and so on, with different damage numbers and so on and so forth. So this is just the core that all abilities should have, and other elements are actually just the like the logic sugar. So type, it's the class of our ability. So before you can add this one inside the structure, you need to create the ability base class. It's derived from the actor, and don't look at what you have on the graph right now. We are just filling up the structure. Then you should look for ability base, but for the class reference. Other one is description, and this description field is used both for the 3D widget in the world and for the tooltip we have on our action bar. Next, texture is the icon that can be used in the tooltip in the world and for the icon in the action bar. Duration and cooldown, both floats. So duration means if you have the channeling ability or like the ability that is used over the time, like the invisibility, you need to have this one. And the cooldown to like make your system work as all other ability system works. So all abilities should have cooldown. Once you've added this structure, you need to create the database or data table. To create the table, you need to select with the right mouse button on the empty space inside the content browser, and in miscellaneous select data table. Once you've done this, here you should select the structure that you created. And here I have it. All you need to do is just to add another row, and by default you can see this base structure. Then you should actually select the type of the ability and few other necessary information. For the type, you don't need to go with the base class, because all our skills, our abilities here, chaos, invisibility, leap, are derived from the base class. So before filling up the data table, you need to create the child of your ability, and then in the ability you should, in the type, select the child class of ability you will need to work with. Also, if duration is 0, it means that it's an instant ability, so it happens like in one frame, and the animation for the duration state will be dismissed and the cooldown will appear immediately. So once we've done with these two, let's go to the material that I use for the cooldown animation. So right now we will end up with all small elements, and in the end of the video we will continue with the most heavy one, where the all logic is stored. So our material. So material for cooldown animation. It's very common animation. You can see it mostly on all UI elements that big amount of games have. So it's the animation that starts from the 12 o'clock and goes on the clockwise on the right, simply filling up like the sector of each quad, like this one, this, and this. So to have this animation, first one we need to have texture coordinate, subtract 0.5, so the pivot point for this element for our UI will be placed in the center. Next, rotation center, by default of the custom rotator node, is set to be 0.5, 0.5, and to have it work as it's intended, you need to go with 0 here. And to make our animation start from 12 o'clock, we need to set rotation angle to 0.25, so it's this point. Once we're done with this, next is vector to radial value. We transform our computations here to the specific angle on the decad coordinate space. You need to pull a wire from vector converted to angle, and you can go with the mask on the red or other channels. But I'd like to use the saturation node, just like this one. So this one will actually convert the result to be normalized from 0 to 1, instead of having it like go more than 1. So, and this will help us to deal with the measuring the alpha that we have here more easily. So, if alpha on our B channel is higher than A, our value that we have from these computations, we'll go with the 0, 1. So, as you can see, it's black one here. And if it's less than our value here, we'll go with 1. So, the 1 here is represented by the red color. Next, to make it work as you saw it from the demo, we need to invert our result here and multiply it by color, and color should be set to parameter, so we can adjust it through the blueprint. And for different states, also as for the alpha, it's the scalar attribute, scalar parameter. For different states, like for the duration, it's blue 1 here, and the alpha is set to be 1. And if you have the cooldown state, the color should be red, and the alpha should be measured from 0 to 1 instead of being static 1. Next, overall opacity here is multiplied by 0.35, so the element that's our texture that is put behind our animation, our elements with the animation, should be actually visible. So, not to cover our texture with the full solid animation, we need our animation to be translucent. So for this, also make sure that the domain material for this shader is set to be user interface, and to make it translucent, make it translucent. So simple. So once we're done with our shader here, our animation is done, we can continue with our tutorial. So, we've created the base class of our ability. Now we should create the blueprint component that we should use, as I said earlier, in our character. So, to create component, just need to select blueprint class and go with actor or scene component. I've used actor component, so it doesn't have any transform, it just stores the logic. So, let me show you. Actor component, our ability system component. Once you've done this, leave it and add it inside the character here. Add look for our component, simply add. And you can close our character. Next, leave our component and we'll talk about the interface, because we have actor on the scene, we have character, we have widget, and we need to make those elements work together. And the perfect way how to make them know about each other is to use the interface. So create blueprint interface. I have one here. It's called ability system, and you should add these functions. Add ability. For the input is the structure that you created earlier. Use ability. Updateability Tooltip with the text. So this function is used for updating the 3D widget and the tooltip on the action bar. Update duration, update cooldown for the proper animation and to make synchronous work with actors and UMG widgets. Removability and the ability base, make sure that the variable here is the base class, not the particular ability that you have, but the base class of this ability. Because if the child is derived from its parent, it means that basically it's the base class. Then swap abilities, and here we need to just have two integers, the old index and new index. This one is needed for us to make our abilities swap inside the action bar. And update key bindings with the key here. It's simple key, so you will see it. This one is needed because like once you've created the whole system and you don't have any skills, any abilities, the widget is created only once. But in case you like to have abilities to be swapped, I use the horizontal box, and this type of widget doesn't support the runtime slot swapping. So the trick about this approach is that once we need to swap our abilities, we need to clear our horizontal box and refill it with our children. So to redraw the whole widget. It doesn't cost any, but it's the only way to make it work in case you have the C++ knowledge to expose these methods through the C++ code to Blueprint. So once you're done with the interface, we can continue. So at this point, let's create some widgets that we should have and we will be referencing through our main logic. Let's begin with ability grid, ability slot, and ability tooltip. Right now, don't take care about the ability drag preview and the blueprint class ability drag drop. This will be in this video, but a little bit later. So the first one is ability grid. Here we have horizontal box. I have the specific size and anchor. So my system is for 4 elements. Each element is 120 on each side. So that's why the size is this one. Make sure that your horizontal box is variable, so you can use it as the reference inside the graph. Next one is ability slot. It's the slot for our particular ability. Let me quickly show you the layout. So, by default I have the first one is the border, named background. The size is, as I said, 120 for each side. It has its padding and brush color of this element is this one. It's the container for storing up the texture that I have. For the preview I have it lib here, like this one. And that's all. Also make sure that icon, the image element here, is also variable. Next one is overlay. Overlay is used for, as it goes from its name, for overlaying over other elements, and we will use it to make our animation of cooldown or duration be visible over our image that we have under the background here, over this one. So, overlay is also the same size as the background, and it contains 3 children. Cooldown background, its border, and as you can see here you don't have anything. You should also make it to be variable, so we will use the material we created earlier, this one, to be the brush for this element. Next is timer. It's simple text that we will change. We will change the color and the text inside this widget to show up the duration cooldown state changes. And the last one is also border, is for the key holder. So it's simple sort of grid for storing up the key that is used for particular ability. You can go with any like layout you want, but this system that I made uses this one, and I think that for prototyping it's actually okay to go with this kind of layout. The padding is set here to be 90 on left and bottom, so it's set to be on the right top corner here, and it's visible quite good, and you can always see what type of key you should press to make ability work. Also, key here should be variable, so when you create the full action bar, the full grid, this element will be changed. And the last one at this point is ability tooltip. So, by default, each element inside the widget can have tooltips, but tooltips by default are quite ugly. This one is just the sort of placeholder and can be changed with the texture inside, with fancy, filled with fancy looking font, etc. Just the way to show you how you can change the default tooltip with the custom one. So for custom tooltip you need to have the separate widget. Here I have the border, which stores the text element. Text element also is variable, so it's changed when the time comes. Now let's go with all elements that should have their interface implemented, and then start with the logic. So, quick review of all our elements that we have right now. Ability base class settings should implement the ability system interface. Just add and select. It have already interface implemented here, so that's why I can't see it on the list. Ability base. Next, ability system component also should have this interface implemented. Let me check if, yeah, ability grid should have it. Next, ability slot and ability tooltip. So, grid, slot, tooltip, base class of ability, ability system component. Let me actually check this one. It has our interface. Drag and drop should not have it. And yep, that's actually it. These 5 elements should have the interface implemented. And now the magic begins. Let's start with ability base class. While I'm trying to explain it in details, I will be swapping from one element to other to show you the the influence or how one element triggers another one. So please be patient and be careful. Begin hearing me with more attention. Something like this. So, base ability should have widget component, type of space should be screen, widget class ability tooltip, and by default it should not be visible. Sphere collision with the custom preset, only query, ignores everything but overlaps spawn. Sphere radius can be changed here, or you can go with the custom attribute to make it visible inside your world outliner. And for my purpose I have hidden in-game set to be false so I can see it. Here you can add actually the static mesh component and fill up the model or the skeletal mesh component and fill it with the proper model, and you should also make change to your structure and then fill it with the proper reference inside the database. But for this particular tutorial it's not so important. Next, for the variables, data table raw handle with the data table or database of our abilities row should be set to none. Then ability data is the structure that we created earlier. Next, time handle for pickup ability timer. Next, player reference, top-down character or the character that you use for your ability system. Next, variable, boolean type, ability ready, by default set to be true, because each element that is created and is placed inside on the level, or if we pick it up, should be able to use from the start. And as you know, my system predicts us to withdrawing the elements if the cooldown or the duration isn't ended. So only if we have it's able to be used, we can withdraw it. Next, duration timer and cooldown timer, both are timer handle. On the when begin play, we should extract the data from our data table, because it's the base class. Everything that happens here will be actually used inside inside the child that is derived from this class. So I'll show you the pipeline how you should create the ability in the end. Right now, let's focus on this particular ability-based class. So we extract the data from our data table and store it to our ability data, to our structure. Next, we use Updateability Tooltip. The message we actually send through the blueprint interface to our widget, because our widget here have the class Ability Tooltip. This message will be sent to this widget. To make it work, we need to extract the getUserWidget object from our widget, then provide the text we have here. So it should be added to the widget, and next it will be shown. Here we have the description that we extract from our structure. So you can go with break structure. By default, all elements are visible, and here you have the hide unconnected pins. So it's useful to like have your blueprint clear. And for my purpose, I have basic description, and to make like it more adjustable, to have more information, like press F to pick it up, I've used a transfer node from the text to string, append string with this element, next another convertation to text. To make this work, so our tooltip will have its so basically we need to implement this event inside our tooltip. So the message can be sent, but to make it work we need to implement this event inside our tooltip. Because we have the blueprint interface implemented, all its functions are exposed here under the interface. So this is how it looks in the widget, and this is how it looks inside the blueprint. So now you just need to search for Updateability Tooltip event. Here it is. And next we need to set text to our text element, this one, with the one that we have inside our interface. And that's it. Now our tooltip will work perfectly. So with this we can close our ability tooltip and continue with the ability-based logic. Next one is the ability for overlap. So once we overlap with our ability, we need to check whether we are overlapping our particular character, not other one, but only our one. So that's why we use cast, and if it's success, I store the reference here that we have from our cast as the player reference, so we can use it next in the logic inside this blueprint. Once it's done, I have the timer which check each 0.8 second it's looping. Next conditions. So this one is custom event. So once you create the custom event, you can like pull a wire from the event delegates from the timer and select create event. Next, under this function, once you have your custom event implemented or the function, you can select it like this one. And then let me end with the overlap. Once the overlap is done, we should change the visibility of our widget, of our 3D widget, to be visible. If we end overlap, we need to check whether our character ends overlapping it. Then we updating our reference to be null. Then we should clear and invalidate the timer of this this timer of this ability, so it won't be ticking up. And then we should set visibility of our 3D widget to be invisible, so it's false. Whew. So next one is, let's actually talk about the flow, and with the pickup ability we will continue a little bit later. So we need to implement the following abilities. Event use ability. Once we have our ability activated, we need to set ability ready to be false, so we can't use it before our duration and cooldown timer exist. And once we use our ability, we start update duration. So here are these two events, functions that we have in our interface: event update duration and event update cooldown. If we use event use ability, here I actually call this one to start, but it's the interface call. So here you can make it like call function, but I prefer working with the interface calls and interface messages. So this means that I'll use this function here. So if our ability is triggered, we need to start if it's channeling this part of logic. We check whether duration of our timer equals 0. If it's so, it means that we have the instant ability and we should skip other elements and just begin the cooldown state. So if it's true, we have also the interface call to this event. If it's false, we need to set another timer. Make sure that yeah, that this timer isn't looping. And from the ability structure, we also provide the duration here. So as you can see, we have two timers. Timer inside the duration actually starts the timer inside the cooldown state. So what it means? It means that sorry, if we have channeling or the skill that is happening over time, this timer, this function will be triggered only if the duration timer comes to an end. So once duration is coming to be end, we are triggering another state, and it's update cooldown. As I said, if you have implemented functions, custom events or events functions from the interface, they can be used inside the create events delegates for the timer, like this. So our duration is done. Next one is for the timer to for our cooldown timer. Here another timer for the reset ability. So update cooldown is used to prevent us from the spamming out the ability from time to time. So when the cooldown timer is going to be end, it will trigger the reset ability. Reset ability is the custom event that actually invalidates both timers, the timer for the duration for the cooldown, and resets ability ready state to true. So it means that I can use ability one more time. That's how it works. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain you, but as you can see, this can be a little bit confusing, but once you've managed to work with timers, it won't be quite difficult to you anymore. So all we need to talk about is the pickup ability, and I'll talk about this one right after I'm done with talking about the ability system component. So let's go to ability system component. So guys, actually why I'm laughing is like I thought that tutorial will be like maybe 20 or 30 minutes, but it's so hard to explain everything even if I have it implemented already. So it's so tiring. Please forgive me my laugh here. So ability system component. On the event begin play, when our component is created, we need to create the widget and add it to the viewport, like this. This widget is ability grid. To make it further complicated, you can actually have the hard class or the player controller. Like the very good practice is to have all the widgets implemented inside one class. But actually, the more I work, I've come up with the idea that systems that work inside them, like for instance, if you have the blueprint class and the component, the widget that are the parts of the same system that share the same functionality, like they should be modular, the separate one, and like combining these modules should make your character and your game and your gameplay work together. To make it like nested with like you have the player controller, you have HUD, you have system ability system component that if you like messaging from one class to other, not inside the system but from like different elements, it's going to be complicated. And if you can like make your system fully modular, only needed like if it's fully modular and the only thing should be changed is like your character, so you need to add this system, this whole functionality as the component and start working. It's the best approach. So we've created our grid. Next we should implement the following events. Event addability. Also make sure that you have these variables created. So once we create our grid, we store it as the reference. Next one is ability structure. Next one is the array of ability base class. Next one is ability base class, and it's called ability to remove and ability to detach. It's a simple act. Now, event addability, we store the ability data that we will receive from different places to our local variable. Next one is to check whether we have any free slots to add ability. For this one we use for each loop with break, and from HUD ability grid, here you can see I have ability slots. Actually, let's go to the ability grid and you'll see what we should add here to make it work here. So, as I said earlier, a little bit confusing, but try to stick with me with my explanation and you will have this system work perfectly. So, this grid. Here I have ability slots, it's HUD ability slot array. So it's basically array of these widgets, of this one. And to have it, we need to, first of all, when the widget is created, we need, and one more time, we have event on initialized and event on construct, I guess that's the proper name. Construct. I'm so tired. So the difference between these two events is that this one fires only once per game instance. This one fires multiple times. Even if you have like remove or set your widget visible or hidden, you change the states, or you remove child from the viewport and edit, construct will be triggered every time. Event on initialized will be triggered only once. So there are reasons why you should use this one and use another one. I'll explain it later. So here simply I've decided how many slots I should have. For loop from 0 to 3, it means that I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 slots. I create a HUD ability slot widget. Next one, I add these elements to my ability grid, because it's horizontal box. I use add child to horizontal box. The next one, I store each element to the ability slots array. We need this one, so once we come up with the swapping ability here, we will actually swap in array elements, their indexes, and redrawing the whole widget. Yeah, redrawing the whole widget. Next one, once we have it done here, is update keybinding. It's that I told you earlier, because this one event is triggered only once, and once we are adding our abilities and trying to swap it, if we change the element inside the array, all the data that is stored inside this element, inside this object, is also like stored. And because we have in this widget the binding, like the name of the binding, that should be just visible. If we change the order of elements inside the array, like if you have QWER, like this one, and if you don't have and if we try to swap these elements, you can see bindings are the same. And for instance, if I try to like jump, I press W, this triggered here, and now if I press W, another ability is triggered. Now if I press Q, our jump is here. So if I try to change the order, the bindings on the grid, just the visual representation will be changed. So we need to update our key binding inside our widget here. So for each element inside our horizontal box, we should actually call this event and provide the following data. I have slot key map. It's simple map with the key integer and value of key. And here I have 4 elements. Once you have your map here, default value is 0, and if you don't change it, you just can't add another element. And actually you need to have this one starting with 1. So next you can add right as you can see, you have 0 here, and I can't add another element, so I have 5. Now I can add 6, and so on. If I have 2 zeros, I have error. So as I have 4 abilities, I have 4 bindings. If you want to have more abilities, just add it here. So because this one array index is starting from 0, I need to add 1. So for each element, for each of this element, I have the proper index inside the map, so the proper key will be added inside this interface message. Phew. So once I'm done with this one, this swap ability let's actually leave on leave for future. Let's go back to the component and continue with this event add ability. So I need to check if any element that I have inside my grid are empty, so I can add another ability. And Let me quickly check. Yep, sorry guys, sorry for this confusing jumping up from one to another. As you can see, this one returns ability slot object, this one, and the empty boolean is the boolean variable that I have inside this widget. So please open this widget and let me quickly check what I do have here. This one, this, yeah. For this particular moment, inside the ability slot, just add the boolean type variable called beEmpty. By default, it's true, because if you have safe system, you should actually check whether you load the data and you should store these variables for each slot. But by default, if you start the game, it should be empty. So back to ability base, ability system component. So I check whether my slot is empty. If it's true, I use add ability message sent to this element hot slot ability, because it also has implemented ability here. So once I've added ability, I provide ability data that I have from this event. Next, to stop iterating through the whole slots, because we need to find the first empty one. Here I use the custom event which is called stop free slot iteration. I call it here. And I add I extract the data that I have from this variable and add it to the abilities array. So it means that this array symbolizes sort of inventory of ability that I have inside my character. Next is event removability. I receive the ability class from this event and store it as the ability to remove. Then I remove it from my array here. And then I should iterate also to detach the proper elements that I have inside my character. So this operation is for withdrawing the ability to the world, so I can pick it up later in case I want to, I have fully packed abilities, 4 of them, and I found the fifth and I want to have it so I need to withdraw one to choose what should I sacrifice and add another one. So that's for this part of logic. Then from the get player character, I use get attach actors, because here I'll be attaching the object, the skill, to my character. Let me actually complete with this one and we will continue with the pick up ability here. So I check of all attached actors on my character. Then I simply check whether ability to remove is equal to one that I have inside my character. I get all actors, I check if I have if the abilities I want to withdraw if I have it. If it's true, I actually detach this actor. Here you can go with any sort of location rule, like the transform. it will end up with some fancy bug, because if you have the relative location, let me show you. If I want to withdraw it, it will return to the place where I have picked it up. Once I've used keep world, like for everything, you'll see that once I withdraw it, it withdraws somewhere the place, and if I try to withdraw it every time, the place is actually changed. So you should actually go here with detach actor and like to keep this work perfectly fine, I guess you can go with keep relative. Then get play character, get location, and for this one set world something like this. You can go with any logic that you want. You can like make it whatever you like, but it's the quick way out how you can actually I need to check how it actually well, let's come back here at the end of the video. So it's not the matter of case for particular this moment. So you detach the actor, then because once I pick up ability, I actually make it hidden, so it should like hide the model that I have inside my ability, and I use stop remove iteration. So because I have here iteration through the all abilities that I have, once I found the necessary one, I should stop iterating through this. So I have the custom event here, which I call here once this condition is successful. And event swap abilities, where I have HUD ability grid as the reference I've created here, and as you saw it also, event swap abilities inside the grid is implemented. So in my component, I use the message through the interface to actually tell the grid to make this, to fire this function. So make it also here. Now with this one, except of the transform, we are done, and we can go back to ability base and end up with blueprint logic here, and all the left is to actually show you how the widget works and how to implement the skill. So pick up ability. Here I check on the input key that I should press. This ability, as you remember, is taken every 0.8 second to check whether I'm going to press the particular key. The sake of the demo is implemented. This is implemented here, and the key I press is F. You can store it as the variable and use this variable to like inside this text, so it will be dynamically updated. Next, from player reference, because I have it here, I try to get component of the ability system. Then from this one I use abilities array and check where the abilities I'm overlapping, I'm trying to pick up. doesn't contain inside my character, inside my inventory. If it's so, I use interface and send add ability to the ability system component. So this one will fire. Then I should clear and validate the timer, so I don't need to be listening to this event right now. Then I hide the actor, the ability, and attach it to player character. Maybe I should work with this one more precisely. I'll check it at the end. So right now we've covered the ability base and ability system component, and we can continue with our widgets and drag and drop operation. Let me check one more time if I told you everything here. Yep. Yep. And now let's talk about widgets. We have ability grid and ability slot. Let's go inside ability slot first. So, ability slot. First of all, check variables that you have. Cooldown background, it's this one. The border that we will use for applying the material of cooldown as a brush to have the animation for both cooldown and duration timers. Next, icon key timer. Next one, ability data, key shortcut, empty boolean. Next, material instant dynamic, cooldown timer, duration timer, alpha timer, variable for change counter. It's for changing between states of animation, whether I have duration or cooldown animation. And HUD ability tooltip. That's it. Now back to logic. Yep, this is quite heavy, but we can do it. On event tick, or can go with another logic, I check whether key shortcut that I have from this grid, from this logic, is pressed, and if my ability actually isn't empty, my slot is filled with the ability, I do once. Like if it's true, it will fire only once. If it's false, it will reset this operation. So it will be ticking only with this logic. It will be resetting, but this logic won't trigger before we have the true condition from here. Next, we check whether player pawn, I also get component of ability system, contains the type of ability that I have from ability data. And if it contains, it means from ability data I can get actor of class. It will return the first one, but as I said early on the tutorial, it doesn't care what type of actor we are corresponding to. It will take the first one and it will fire event, and it will work perfectly. So whether it's on the scene or whether it's unattached to our character, in case you have here is the situation. You have picked up an ability, and the reason why I attach this ability to myself, because I can have the level that don't have any same abilities, and why once I want to use it, I need to have the reference. So to have a reference, I need to have the inactor attached to myself. But this is for the case in case I have the safe system. So if I have the safe system, I actually have the tutorial. You can watch it and see how you can implement it and make it work with even this ability system. So I need to reconstruct the ability class, ability object, and then this will also work with different levels. So if ability slot here, the data they have, I check if it exists on my checked inventory. I use get actor of class. It takes only one actor. Then from this point I check whether ability is ready. So if it's ready, I can use it. Then I use the usability message through the interface to the ability base class. As you remember, this one will trigger. Then I start updating my timer on the widget, and I start another timer which is called update alpha. It fires like every frame mostly, just for the proper smooth animation. Update alpha is actually the custom event. Let me show you what it does. It does few things. It's actually updating the scalar attributes of material of the cooldown. This one. So our animation of filling up the whole quad is playing smoothly. But first things first, and I also store it as the timer handler, so I can delete it when I don't need it to use. Next one, as I said, event on initialized, event construct. You need on the initialized to set the brush from the texture for our icon. This one. By default, the empty texture. I have this one. So it means that once the game is started, I don't have any abilities. I need to make it like this. So all elements are filled with this particular texture. Only then I need to create dynamic material instance of material cooldown. Then I use it as the brush for the cooldown background. It's the border that you saw here. This one, white one. And because as I said, that the swapping ability of slots inside the UMG isn't exposed to the UMG and blueprints, I need to redraw, reconstruct the whole grid from the start. So this one will trigger every time I am swapping my abilities, and these elements only needed to be used inside the construct. It's like by default the timer, this element should be hidden, because if I pick up an item, it's able to be used, so any timer won't trigger. So by default we need to hide this element, and to set scalar parameter alpha to be 1, because like if you have it from 0 to 1, it's the full cycle of animation where I'm covering up the border with the red color on the clockwise. But if it's 1, it means that I don't have any state of like 1 symbolizes the end of the cycle. So as you can see, nothing is filled up with the red color, and when it's from 0 to 1, it's this animation. Let me quickly check. Do I have anything here? No. So, initialized explain, construct explain, next. Event add ability. We receive this event from the inventory component, from ability system component. Sorry guys. Here, event add ability is calling up add ability of HUD ability slot. And the data that we have here is transferred to our widget here. From this point we set texture for our icon, then we check if HUD ability tooltip is created. It's the widget for showing up the custom tooltip that we have on our action bar. This one. If it's valid, we continue with the logic. If it's false, you need to create one, set it as a local reference, and then here use it as the widget for setting tooltip to the whole widget. So the whole widget, each element that we are trying to hover with our mouse will be firing up, showing up, will be used to show up the custom tooltip. The widget that we created earlier, this one widget. I update the description to the widget, also from the ability data, and set this slot, the ability that is inside the slot, to be empty, not empty. It means if the empty is false, it means that it's full, it's packed. Next thing that you saw on the ability component, system component, also two timers. And the logic is the same. I check whether duration is set to be 0. It means that if it's true, we don't have the duration, it's the instant ability, and we start with cooldown. If it's false, we create another timer, and the event for this timer is update cooldown. So when the duration comes up to the end, this event will fire. Change counter, not quite good name, but this variable is used inside the update alpha to change between like the colors and the states of cooldown and duration animation that we have inside our cooldown material. So by default it's false, and when the cooldown fires, we need to set this variable to be true. That's all for the cooldown and duration. I'll explain the purpose of this boolean right here. Now is reset ability is also a custom event, and it's fired when the cooldown timer is also coming up to the end. And as you can see, no looping here. So resetability, set back the alpha of our cooldown to B1, so our icon on the action bar isn't covered with the blue or red color. We invalidate 3 timers, all that we have. Next one, we set the timer, it's the text that represents the time of our timers, to be hidden. And I change counter back to false. It means that it just should be reset. Next one is update alpha, the event that fires here once I'm enabling or using the ability. I need to switch back timer element to be visible. Then, depending on change counter state, I use get timer remaining by handle to set the proper representation of the timer on my slot. So, if change counter is true, it means that we are on the cooldown state. If it's false, it means that we are on the duration state. And different floats will be used for the text. The same logic for all other logic for the set color and opacity of my timer. So, as you can see, if it has duration, like this one, or invisibility, the first one is the blue one, fully covered. The next one is red one, and another animation. Let's wait for engine to stop simulating. So, depending on change counter, I change the color of my text. So, as you remember, the first state is cooldown. If the change counter is true, it means the cooldown state. If it's false, it means it's duration state. So for duration is blue color, for cooldown is red one. Next one is for filling up the alpha. Because the materials we have, the alpha is measured from 0 to 1. To make it work in the proper way, we need from 1 withdraw or subtract the result of this operation. We divide remaining time of our cooldown on the cooldown state, so we can receive the sort of 0 to 1 normalized value. And with subtracting this one, we start with filling up the whole animation cycle. Oh, sorry, this should be set to 0. I saw that I made a mistake, but it's not a mistake. Yep. If the alpha is 0, it means like if the alpha is 1, it means that we are not covered with the filling color. If it's 0, it means that we are fully covered. And to make it like two different states between duration and cooldown, I use this type of logic and need to change also the color of the vector attributes I have here, this one. So that's up for the updating alpha, the updating states of, let me just change it to update or update cooldown duration. Let's go with this one. Yep. Now we are left. Oh, the last thing before we start talking about drag and drop operation is what update keybinding, because I receive it from the grid here, like update keybinding here and here. This one will be soon explained. So this event fires, and I use key shortcut as the text for the key element that I have. This one. Now the end parts of the whole tutorial is swapping abilities, drag and dropping, and that's it. So to make everything work with drag and drop and swap abilities, to withdraw our element to the world, to place it there, we need to create the following blueprint. I've called my ability drag drop. So blueprint class. Here under the all classes you need to expand this category and look for drag drop operation. This class, as you can see, it's just clear one, is for make all drag and drop operations with UI elements happen. Here I have ability data, it's for the future purposes, and index, added as the variables. Make sure that they both are instance editable and they are exposed on spawn. Once you've done this, next you need to create the widget. It will be represented as the preview value for our drag operation. So simple widget, ability drag preview. Here I have the layout that I found myself more comfortable to work with. So it it's nearly the same that I have for my main slot widget. Simple holder and image, and on the graph I have instance editable and expose on spawn for my ability. Sorry guys, I need to answer my wife. So back to our slot, our preview slot. Ability structure, exposed on spawn. I receive it, and then I on construct of this widget simply change the brush from the texture that I have for my preview icon for this element. And that's it. Now let's talk about let's talk about drag and drop operations. So on the left side of your widget, inside your ability slot widget, you can see that you have override functions. You can have actually, in my case, 40 overriding actions, overriding functions. You need to press override and select the following. Let me see if they are exposed here, if I have them Yep. No, I've already override them. They are somewhere here. The first one is called on mouse button down. We need this one to actually detect whether we start our drag and drop operation. Once you've pressed override, this one will be exposed, and here by default you will see only like this node and this node, except those. You need to add ability, you need to add extra logic here. From ability data of type we check whether the class is valid, so if it's false we can't drag and drop anything. If it's true we detect drag if press, and here drag key for my purpose, for my project is right mouse button. So I provide mouse event here as the pointer event and return value from return value here. Next one is on drag detected. So when drag is detected, that we received from the previous function, you need to create the widget, drag widget, this one, provide ability data, and next from the return create drag drop class operation. It looks like this. Drag drop, create drag drop operation. From the class you need to select your class, in my case it's ability drag drop. Use default drag visual from this widget. As you can see, as you exposed elements inside this class, now you can provide this data here. Ability data for ability data, and for the index I use get parent and get child index from the self class, for the self slot. This operation does next. Get parent of the slot, ability slot, will be returned the ability grid, the horizontal box, this one. And from this operation we just need to get child index, and for the self, if the drag operation is detected, it will return the index of the elements where my mouse is hovered. So slot 0, 1, 2, 3. Yep. So when I try to drag like this, this operation will receive the index of the slot I'm trying to drag over. So in case I want to store the index of the elements when I drag, in this case it will be 1, not 0 but 1. In case I have the ability I want to shuffle on the fourth slot, it means like 0.123, the index will be 3. That's how it works. So the payloads, as you can see from the description, can be any UI object that can be passed and data will be stored inside, but I don't really need it, because the only part I need to be stored is this one. And the return value for the operation is the return value of the create drag and drop operation. So we have a mouse button down, means we pressed our mouse, then we drag detected, and we created this operation here. Next one is on drop. It means that we drop our, we stop pressing our mouse key, and the element is dropped somewhere on the viewport. On drop actually will return if it can be added inside the slot. So if we are working inside the horizontal box, if we drag and drop the child of this class inside the other empty slot, it will work perfectly. So next, over on drop, and all these operations like on mouse, drag detected, and on the drop, they are by default hidden inside this function. We need to override all of them on drop, drag detected, and on mouse button down. So on drop, we need to cast to our ability drag drop class, because this one will return the value we have here if the drag was successful. From this point, we like extract the index that we store, this one, and also send the message through the interface to our ability component, where the old index is the index from our drag drop operation, and the new index is actually the index of the child that we are hovering at the moment. So one more time, this one is old index, and in case we want to apply this ability on this slot, the new index will be this. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So old index is 1, new index is 2, because if we are dropping in, the index from the hovering element will be actually provided properly. Why we need to use swap abilities here? The message through the interface to the ability component, because like component should, in my opinion, work as I can add ability, I can remove ability, and I can swap ability. The actor, that is actually the ability, should actually check if a character can pick it up, then it should be used, and it should store its timers. So separating the logic in such logic parts is the key to have the system to work fine, not overcomplicated, and logically fine, I guess. So, and when we send this message to the ability component, this ability component will actually receive it, and then, only then, we'll tell our grid, this one, to trigger this function. So, and we need to return true here. By default it will be false. Make sure that on drop you return true. Once we're done with our drag and drop override event, let me close the explanation of this part of the swap abilities, because we have it in several parts, and this part here is left for our hard ability grid. So this event is implemented. Then for our ability slots, it's the slot of the it's the array of the slots widget. We are swapping element like one index to another one, so the order is changed. Then we need to clear on our grid all the children, and for the new order here we need to iterate through the all elements and add child to horizontal box like we did here, and update keybindings as we have here with the same logic. Array index plus 1, so the slot key map here will be the same. This operation will redraw the whole grid, and the order will be changed and everything will work perfectly. Now there are two functions left. It's on drag cancelled. It means that once we start dragging and we like not putting it inside our action bar, we just keep it here, we are cancelling drag operation, and we are spawning or detaching the actor that we had in our action bar. So drag cancel, we check whether our ability component inside our abilities have the same type of the abilities that we want to withdraw to the world. If it's true, we get actor of this class, as we have it here. Oh gosh. And we check whether ability is ready, because we can't withdraw ability with the cooldown. If it's true, we remove ability. It's the interface message to our player to our ability component, and this one will actually fire will fire this event. So we remove our ability, and next we need to reinitialize the slot's defaults, because ability was removed and we need to have the default state of the slot. This one. This is the custom function I've created here. By default, it's change only these attributes. Timer for our counter is hidden. Back to the empty texture. Disable cooldown duration covering color. Then we need to set tooltip to be like the null operator, so we don't have any tooltip if we don't have any ability, and we need to make empty to be true, so our slot is now able to receive another abilities. Whew, finally we've done with our ability components, with our ability system. Now let me show you how you need to create the ability. Like, I have 3 predefined abilities. They work the following way. For instance, sleep. As this child, if it's newly created, we need to first of all go to class defaults in each newly created class, and on the default DB we need to just change the raw name. By default the table will be abilities, and the raw name will be none. To make it work perfectly fine, you need to change this raw name to the proper one that you have inside your data table. This one. So once your child is with this particular raw set, it will receive all other elements, cooldowns, etc. And because it's the child that inherits from the base class of ability base, all functions that we have here, like usability, update duration, update cooldown, each these variables will be you can actually be able to use with, work with them. So, as for the leap, okay, To make your ability work, for each element you need to add only one ability, only one event. It's usability. So if you have it like this one, without parent use ability, this will work, but it will skip the part that you have inside the ability base, and you will skip this one. So ability ready won't be triggered and all the timers won't actually work. So for each element that you create, for each ability, you need to add, like as you can see, I have everywhere use ability and use call to parent. Once you've done this, next you can change everything inside your ability, inside your skill. So it will trigger the base full functionality and add your extra. As for the leap, it's a simple launch character on the z-axis. For the invisibility, because it's the duration, it has duration, I use this one. Like it's the pipeline for all the abilities that are channeling or have the duration. I use set timer by event, which fires every. It actually depends on your needs, how frequently it should be checked. It's looping, and I have custom event which is called check duration state. This one will return the time that remains by the proper handle for the duration. It means that this will return the duration from its, how much time from the duration timer we have. And if the timer here doesn't equal or less than 0, because if the timer is invalidated, it will return -1. So that's why we don't need to check only equal of 0. We need to check whether it's below 0 also. So it means that the timer is invalidated. If it's so, we set visibility. We can actually go do once here. But not like this, but like this. If it's true, do once. If it's false, we'll reset. Set visibility. And visibility depending on the state of the timer. Next, if the timer also is less or equals to 0, we need to stop our timer here, and our ability won't be ticking. So it means that the cooldown state will go after. So let me check that this fires only once. That's my mistake. Should be like this. Yep, fired only once. Oh, this one should be made here. Sorry guys, as you understand, I'm too tired So I've made the logic here to make it fire only once, and that's how it works now. For 3 seconds we are invisible, only one we fired, and then on the cooldown we are back to our visible state. So as I said, it's for the leap, it's for the invisibility, it's for the chaos. That's actually gather all actors in the scene and just make them simulate physics at impulse. It's for those spheres. Like all elements that are derived from the base ability class, that are the child of the base class, should have this one. And the class defaults should have the proper raw name inside the proper raw name from the abilities. And if it's the duration, if it has a duration, it should have some logic that will be counting down the time remaining from the duration timer. And that's it. Now you can implement any kind of skill you want. It can be swappable, it can be withdrawn to the world. You can use it as the core system and adjust it wherever you like. Add extra data tables, extra logic for like weapons, damaging skills, healing skills, wherever you like. And yeah, let me just show you one more time. So create child blueprint from the base class. By default it has this one, you don't need this, just need to use ability, then add call to parent function. Simply let's go with print yay with the red color. Sorry guys, I guess my kid is going to disturb me. Nice kid. So, next one, we need to go to the DB abilities, add extra row, let's name it, let's go with 12, it doesn't matter, and the type here, let's go with ability base child, because the one we have created here, this one. Next, here on the class settings, class defaults, here we need to get the 12 one because we have this as the raw name here. Once we're done with this, simply drag and drop our child. You create the child and press play. Press F to pick up, we press it, we can use it, says yay. And because we don't have anything inside the table, it looks like this. So, you can download this project in the link under this video. I hope you like what you saw. Please subscribe if you like my videos. I do also have the Discord server and Patreon page. I guess I'll update it sometime later. Just for the sake if you want to help me financially. So, I guess I'll see you soon. Bye.